Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Crypto Chats. This week I have something a little different. I haven't actually done anything in this vein yet, so we're going to do the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp. Like I said, I've not yet done any sort of actually, never mind, I take that back, because I did the Loveland Frog, and I think that is kind of in the same vein, so never mind. Anyway, we'll just get into it. So basically, the first ever sighting of this weird lizard man cryptid was in 1987 by a man named George Holloman Jr. But his sighting is not what made the creature famous. The creature became more popular and famous in 1988 when a 17-year-old boy saw this creature and had this really crazy encounter with it. So basically, the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp is located in Scape or Swamp, South Carolina, as it says so right in the name. And it is basically a large bipedal lizard-human hybrid. It had hands with 3 fingers on them, and at the end of those 3 fingers were long, sharp claws that were jet black and super super sharp, and then skin wise this creature was covered in really rough green skin that was very reminiscent, I guess, of a lizard, which makes sense because it is a lizard man. So that's really scary. For me, I can't help but picture the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's just what pops into my head. And I think that, based on the eyewitness sightings, is pretty accurate. I mean, obviously there's a few discrepancies, but I think that's a pretty solid base description of it. Is something, from an old horror movie that's lizard-like but also man-like. So I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about the 1988 sighting that made the creature famous, because it's super interesting, and it sparked this entire kind of manhunt, if you will, for this creature. So at about 2 o'clock in the morning, on a date that I did not write down, 17-year-old Chris Davis was driving home from work when he stopped along the border of the Scape or Swamp to change a flat tire. That is a situation that really sucks. I want to just touch on that for a second, because that's I feel the perfect setting to have a weird encounter with something. You're driving home, it's the middle of the night, you have a flat tire, you have to stop. You stop on the border of a weird swamp, and naturally something weird happens to you. I feel that just the universe set him up to have this perfect setting for a crazy encounter. So, just as he was finishing changing his flat tire, he heard a thumping sound from behind him and turned around to see this weird lizard-like creature running at him. Again, pretty terrifying. I think I've had nightmares about this exact situation where I am stuck on the side of the road for some reason and I turn around and something is running at me, because that just always makes it scarier. So naturally, like any person would do, Chris Davis jumped in his car to try to get away. Luckily, he had just finished changing his tire, or else this would have been a completely different situation. And as he started to drive away, the creature jumped onto his car and was holding onto the back of it and clawed its way up onto the roof. Once on the roof, it dug its claws into the side of its car, and kind of hung on for dear life, I guess, to try to, I don't really know what its intention was. I would assume probably harm. I think that's the direction maybe that was going in. But regardless, it hung onto the side of the car. It, grabbed the mirrors on the side and kind of dinged up the entire car in an attempt to stay attached to it. Davis, noticing that the creature was on top of the roof of his car, had a bit of a moment and was swerving left and right, trying to throw the creature off of his car, which is fair. We've all seen movies where that works, so that's definitely probably what I would do. When he finally threw the creature off of his car, because eventually he did manage to get it off, he got home and kind of just like assessed the situation, took stock of the damage on his car, and it was covered in scratch marks. The side mirror was like really, really badly damaged, and there were claw marks going up the back and all over the roof. Other than that, there was no physical evidence of this creature being there, which I think is, it kind of makes sense based on what kind of a creature it is. It makes sense that it wouldn't really leave a lot of physical evidence. Because at least to my knowledge, with like the evidence from the eyewitness sighting that was provided, it doesn't seem like the lizard man was like scaly. I don't know. It kind of seemed like maybe he just had like very like sandpapery skin. I don't really know. I couldn't find any information about the texture of its skin. So I mean, I guess if it's not a scaly creature, it would make sense that it wouldn't leave any physical evidence on this car that it attacked, other than just some claw marks and some heavy damage to the car. And then, so after that, you know, he reported it and was like, hey, this weird crazy thing attacked me by the swamp. And in his recollection of the encounter, he described being able to see like the fingers and like the, I guess, maybe toes of the creature kind of wrapping around the driver's side mirror, and also like coming down from the side of his roof. And that's scary, because I feel like if you're, I think this situation in general is pretty scary, but imagine like all you see is like a 3-fingered clawed hand coming down trying to just like ruin your day. He remembered it in like really, really sharp detail too, which makes it even scarier. I'm sure this dude is probably still haunted by that. But he also remembered the specific like grunting noises that this creature made when it was struggling to get up on top of the roof of his car. So, and then stay there. So the two biggest things that he just like kept in his brain were the images of these three-fingered hands coming down in an attempt to stay attached to the top of the car, and these like horrible, what he described as guttural grunting noises as the creature tried to stay attached. And that's terrifying. I mean, I can imagine only like, I don't know, obviously I've never had a run-in with the lizard man of Scape or Swamp, so but I can imagine it's probably one of the scarier things that a person could experience. So after Chris Davis's report kind of went public, the following month, people started seeing the creature like a lot. People were reporting seeing it left and right. It was everywhere. And naturally, a lot of people went out to the swamp to try to find the creature, because that's kind of what happens when somebody starts reporting seeing a big scary monster somewhere, is, you know, the townsfolk rally together and try to catch said monster. What's interesting to me is that the people who were going out in search of this monster, leaving their cars parked along the side of the swamp, they started reporting mysterious bite marks and like claw marks on their cars when they would come back. So they would go and search, not really find too much of anything, but come back to this damage to their car that matched pretty closely to what Chris Davis experienced after his run-in with this creature. And that all just like further, I guess, like pushed this story into the public's eye. As per usual, I feel with some of these situations where people start seeing something crazy and weird, the police responded to the claims of the lizard man by saying it was just a bear. It was a bear. There's no possible way it could have been anything else, just a bear. But it's interesting because, and when I say interesting, I mean like kind of annoying, because in the same breath of them saying, well, you know what, actually it was just a bear, like none of you know what you're talking about, they also referred to just about every eyewitness as a reliable person who definitely saw something tangible and weird. So you can't really have it both ways. It's either they saw something weird or it's a bear. And that's like such, it seems to be such a common occurrence in these reports, is like they're like, oh, well, you definitely are credible and you definitely saw something weird, but also we don't believe you and it was a bear. And that doesn't ever make sense to me. I can understand not wanting to scare the general public who is not as invested in finding the monster as some people may be, but also that's silly and weird. What is interesting though is that in this moment of time where so many people were going out into the swamps trying to find this creature that was, then dinging up their cars and wandering around and eluding capture, they started to find three-toed footprints just kind of scattered around the swamp, in places that would have made sense for a lizard man to be. And these footprints were measured, and they were about 14 inches long, so that's a pretty big footprint. And the three-toed aspect of it is really sketchy. But they were all suspected to be from the lizard man. But for some reason, the sheriff's department, who, had all of these casts after they were made, decided against sending them to the FBI for further research. I don't really know why. I mean, maybe if you've got a small town, like, you don't really want a lot of FBI involvement. I don't know. I don't really know what the motive behind not sending them in for further research is. But whatever, I suppose. And then there was a radio show in the area that held $1 million reward for the capture of the lizard man. But shortly after this contest, I suppose I will call it, the bounty on the lizard man's head was placed, the sightings kind of died off, and somebody claimed to have shot it rather, and killed it. And then after that, the sightings just disappeared. I think everybody forgot about it, and they were like, oh, it's dead, it's probably fine. To my knowledge, I don't know, like, how many modern sightings there are, if there are any. But, I mean, maybe someone did kill it. I don't really know. I mean, I wasn't there. So, who knows? But, yeah, I mean, regardless, it's a super interesting story, and this is one of the rare occasions where I can maybe accept the bear theory, just strictly if you only think about the damage that was created to the cars, inflicted on the cars. That's the only thing I can accept. Anything else, like the eyewitness sighting, I refuse to accept. That could have been a bear. Bears are not green. Yeah, I don't know. And also, like, I couldn't find any information about the details of some of the scratches that people found on their cars, whether they were like 3 claw marks or 5 claw marks or 4 even. Like, I couldn't find any information about that, and I think those small details would have probably helped narrow down a little bit, like, some of the theories that went on about this creature. So as far as I'm concerned, there was never any actual proof that this lizard man was shot and killed. And I don't know. I don't really know. I think maybe it's still out there and roaming around. Or maybe it died. I don't know. Lizards don't live that long. I mean, some of them do, but in general, I feel like you have to have a very specific environment for a lizard to live for a long time. So, that being said, I don't think a swamp in South Carolina would be the ideal environment for a giant lizard man to thrive in. So I think maybe he might have died of natural causes. Or maybe he got shot. I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, I still like him though. I think the lizard man's a cool dude. I wish he didn't destroy everybody's cars, because that's kind of rude. But yeah, I mean, I guess the rest is up to you guys on how you feel about this lizard man and his story and his life. And that is what I have for you guys this week, as a relatively short episode, but that's okay, because they can't all be super long. And yeah, so I will be back next week with another weird, kooky cryptid for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's telling of the lizard man of Scape or Swamp. And I will see you guys next week. Bye!